Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Resurrection Cup 2026. You guys are joining us at the very first match of Finals Weekend. It's going to be a very exciting match. But before we jump into it, I'd like to introduce the lovely casting group for you today. Of course, it's going to be myself, Gamili, joined by the lovely iFlame. iFlame, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Big G. We've got an exciting match ahead of us. OWC ready versus Dadunai. It's the Chilean OWC team versus a solid mix of China's OWC team and the Hong Kong team. But these are two very strong teams. They have two very opposing skill sets, of course. I mean, you look at a team with players like Alpha Uter, Campy, and Mathy. Of course, they're going to be picking pretty much every DT map imaginable. On the other side, we've got, Z-Numbers, MCY4, Misha Awa, David Nukti, and you can imagine they're going to be picking a whole lot of control-style maps.
Yeah, I think naturally just analyzing these two teams from a very bare bones standpoint, you can already see, a lot of trends that we're going to be witnessing from these two teams' respective OWC lineups. Of course, given how, a lot of these two teams are just bringing a lot of their OWC players to the table, as you mentioned before, very rightfully so, right? We're expecting to see Control coming in from the East Asia team, and then from the side of Chile, I think we're most definitely expecting to see a lot more mechanics being picked up from them, some speed, some aim, some more of these generic consistency-based skill sets. And that's kind of what I want to talk about going into this matchup, because when we're talking about OWC Ready, or when we're talking about this Chilean team as a whole, Chile as a country is very well known for being very strong in low SR. And we saw a lot of glimpses of this in the earlier rounds, round of 32, round of 16, where you can constantly see very high performances across the board. If you look at their team statistics, always at the top of the rankings every single time. And that's because they're bringing this team brings a lot of players that are just naturally very consistent on a whole, right? You have players like Intercambing, who is commonly known to be one of the best aim players in tournament of all time. And then you're also looking at, talents such as Nakori, if I'm not mistaken, who's just very strong on, very strong on a lot of your more miscellaneous skill sets here and there. You have Mathy, who's always going to be a mainstay on your tapping rosters. Alfeu as well, who's been absolutely popping off as of late as one of the best hidden players in the rank range right now. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of power coming in from the consistency, and I think the main point of contention for OWC Ready's success going into this matchup is going to be contingent on whether they are skill capped. Because I do know that these players do tend to get hit rather hard on skill cap in a whole host of tournaments, especially when you compare them to a lot of the players that are in their ballpark when it comes to raw skills, such as, the Australian team where you have a secret box, where you have MREC. I think a lot of these players are very strong, but they don't necessarily stand out in any respective skill set, at least as of 2026. I know Matty back in the day was in a whole different class when it came to speed, but yeah. Any thoughts on Dadunai? Any thoughts on the other team?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of up-and-comers. Misha Awa has really improved so much over the last couple of years, has become, one of the best players in the tournament scene, and really showed it last week, was 4th overall individually. But it's actually been David who's been their most consistent member so far this tournament. Yes. Consistently has been top 15 individual, and for a player that is a tournament veteran, has been around so long, not only in OWC, but on a lot of these Chinese rosters. It's good to see David stepping up on some higher skill cap pools like this one, when, historically that's been more of a crystal carry. And we are going to get the free mod 3 ban from Dadunai. Now this is an interesting one. Free mod 3 is 250 BPM speed, so obviously you do not want to play any speed maps into this OWC ready team. Excuse me, they're going to pick tapping every time.
Yeah, I mean, this is rather expected, right? Free mod 3, despite being, in my opinion, one of the more accessible speed maps in the pool, it's rather okay, but I say accessible, it's 250 BPM, how accessible can it really be? But, I mean, it's not like a stamina check, it's not a hard stamina check, and it's definitely a map that is somewhat mashable, but it definitely makes sense that Dadunai is going to be the team to take out Fremont 3, especially as you mentioned before, how, they're the less mechanically inclined team. They want to go for more control skill sets. And I think if you're OWC ready in this, in the banning seat, there's a lot of things that you can go for in the control skill set that might be good to ban. Now, I'm looking at something like the Nomod 3, which is, an Asilica tech map. You have a lot of things in the hidden pool that you can potentially take out. In fact, there is a map that literally has the description Chinese tech on it. So if that's not an indication for you to ban it, I don't know what is. But it does look like they are going to be settling on the gimmick map. It's going to be the hidden two being taken out. And very understandably so. If you look at their qualifiers results, the one map that stands as an outlier is the hidden two. So expecting to see them play away from gimmick this matchup, not too surprising here.
Yeah, Dadunai has some very capable gimmick players as well. So, as you said, not too surprising there. But both of these teams have had some pretty interesting journeys to the finals. Over on the side of Dadunai, they're actually one of the strongest teams in quarterfinals, putting up 3 top scores. And that was the week they did drop to Slushy 6-4, who are now on the other side of the bracket. But then put up yet another strong showing in semifinals last week, winning both their matches 6-3 to make it all the way to the finals. On the other side, OWC Ready have kind of cruised their way through most of the winners bracket before finally dropping to Waddle D 6-4 as well, who are now in the winners bracket. We are getting a hidden 1 pick coming through from Dadunai. Not unexpected, it's more of a slider aim pick, but does have quite a few tricky aim control patterns to watch out for.
Yeah, and I think this hidden 1 pick makes a lot of sense given how we were talking about how, hidden naturally just seems to really play into the skill set of Dadunai as a whole. It's also a map, as you mentioned before, with a lot of control-y elements. Definitely not as control-heavy as something, say, like the Hidden 3, which is very, very focused on control. This map blends in a lot more elements of your generic mechanics, right? Map clocks in at 190 BPM, so it's relatively comfortable for most of these players, but where these players are comfortable on the raw map stats, when the players are comfortable on map stats, it leaves a lot of room for the mappers to really experiment and really amp up the difficulty when it comes to the patterning. And I think this map is no exception, right? We say that it's a bit more mechanically inclined, or it's the more mechanical of the maps that we have in the hidden pool. But of course, this is also a map that is a hidden one, and given how Pez is the pooler, you can really expect there to be, a good amount of control sprinkled into the mix. And with hidden, of course, being added onto this map, it's going to add a lot of ambiguity when it comes to, being able to be consistent when you can't even see the circles. Yeah, there's not much to say. I think Ariel in particular is known for this very standard style of tech mapping, if you could call this tech mapping. Yeah, I'm excited to see this one come out. Takehirote, big fan of this artist as well. Lovely friend of mine.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And Dadunai, to their credit, had the 3rd best score on last week's Hidden 1. And I wasn't here last week, but I believe that one was a little bit more flowy of an HD one compared to this one. So it's not necessarily a direct one-to-one translation, but it's certainly a skill set they should be very comfortable on, and pretty good test for OWC Ready. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a guarantee, as favored as they may be, because, OWC Ready do have some very solid aim players. Gonza has been looking incredibly good for them. I do expect we are going to be seeing probably Alphiu in for this one as well, alongside Intercamming, who actually hasn't played many maps so far in this tournament. I believe has mostly just been in for the speedier maps, as well as filling some of the hidden picks here and there. So we'll have to see how Intercamming performs as we get into the first map of finals weekend.
Yeah, already we can see a bunch of misses coming to hit the board. Lolo 233 and Mishawa being the first ones on the chopping block here. Right now, I think if you are a fan of OWC already, you're definitely looking out for a player like Alfeu to really pop off, right? He's been known for his high act plays and known for being very, very strong on hidden as a skill set on the whole. As of right now, the scoreline is going to continue to shift towards the left side as Misha Awa finds yet another miss, already 50k on the margins here. Three-way FC coming in from OWC already, so we're definitely trying to prey on a miss to come from OWC already soon before that lead skyrockets out of control. That miss is going to come with LPU going down here, but there are still two FCs in the name of Intercaming and Gonza to contend with, and as Intercaming finds the miss, that might look good for Dadunai, but unfortunately MCY4 finds the miss at the exact same time, meaning that any sort of recovery has now been neutralized and has been completely stifled. In fact, as Lolo 233 has found the miss, that's the final vestige of hope for Dadunai going down, and meanwhile Gonza still holding through all the slider streams.
Gonza has been so good this tournament and off to a phenomenal start in this match. As you mentioned, the last one holding an FC, it is slightly better recoveries for Dadunai, but those are going to be completely irrelevant as long as Gonza holds. MCY4 finds another miss. There goes Milk Tea once again, and now it's Misha Awe, the only one keeping things somewhat within reach. Now, this is a pretty lengthy map. There is still half the map to go, but 200,000 is a lot of points to make up. There goes Gonza. Now Dadunai, they have an angle, but where is the combo? Right now, it is Misha Awa, but that's being matched by Alfie, who's only about 150 combo behind. So Dadunai are getting to see a lot more misses coming through from OWC Ready. There's a big one as Alfie now finds the drop on that flow aim section. The question is, can Misha Awa hold?
Yeah, this is one of the most difficult sections of the map. These circular slider into circle patterns are incredibly difficult to be consistent on, but Misha Awa hits every single section, and now it's just going to be Intercame and LPU to try to stop this recovery from Misha Awa. It's going to be a tall task to ask, however. It's about a quarter of the map left, and unfortunately, Misha Awa just can't seem to get far with that recovery, and with that, only stagnation is going to hit the board as OWC Ready thrive off, they capitalize, they monopolize their early game lead on this hidden one. And I don't want to call it too soon, but it looks like we're going to see a very early breakpoint on this hidden one.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to cut that score lead in half with that miss from Misha Awa. Really doing them in, as unfortunately at this point they are just out of time. It was a really strong score from Gonza to keep OWC Ready in the lead, and we're going to see some misses at the end, but it will in fact be that breakpoint for OWC Ready. They're off to a very good start, and it feels like they have quite a few strong picks left in this pool. You know, we get the second phase of ban after 4 maps, which means OWC Ready has 2 picks before the next set of bans to basically go into as much tapping as possible. You've got the Fremont 3 has been banned out, but that leaves DT3 open. That leaves Nomad 4 open as well. And those seem like the next obvious picks for OWC Ready in my mind. Seems like ones they should be pretty heavily advantaged on, so I think there's a really good chance we're going to see them looking to convert this breakpoint here.
Yeah, I'm particularly worried about what Dadunai, what this loss means for Dadunai, right? Because Hidden just seemed to be one of their better angles going into this matchup. In fact, I was talking about it before, right? I expected OWC Ready to respect ban at least one of the Hiddens from Dadunai, and it was in fact that Hidden too. So now, given how Dadunai has just lost this very crucial angle on this hidden one, it definitely makes going into the future hidden picks and even some of the free mod picks a little bit dicey, right? I think after that very decisive loss on that hidden one, the hidden 3 is just too risky for them to go into during that next pick. And if I were OWC Ready here, I wouldn't even say that I need to necessarily go in for a hidden pick to try to play off momentum here, right? I definitely think that you have a very, very important breakpoint here. You have a breakpoint on a map that was very favored or seemed very favorite numbers-wise towards Dadunai. I think you just try to go around the pool, try to find more angles of attack while you have this buffer. And it looks like they're going to do just that with this DT3 being picked out.
Yeah, if they're tapping in the pool, OWC Ready are going to be picking it. It's a safe bet, and especially in this format where you have the delayed second ban phase, it's especially rough to give up that first pick because, you know, those first 2 picks are supposed to be your guaranteed maps, and now that they've given that one up, OWC Ready, once we get to that second ban phase, is going to have a chance to ban out one of Dadunai's 2 strongest picks, and so all of a sudden you only get 1 free point and the match gets a whole lot harder, whereas OWC Ready, they're going to have a chance to secure what are I shouldn't say free points, because, you know, we still have to play the maps, but they have been so dominant on the tapping picks all tourney long, and especially when you look at a roster like Dadunai, who just do not have really any super dedicated players that are going to be comfortable tapping 315 BPM, which is what we've got up on the chopping board.
Yeah, I feel like it's always a story. I mean, it's a very funny story of survival when it comes to talking about East Asian players in general, right? I think this concept popularized by Forum's run in OWC 2024. Whenever you're going against an East Asian team, be it China, be it South Korea, it's always a matter of surviving the mechanics picks. And I think, I mean, given the lineup of players that we are seeing from Dadunai this time around, I definitely think that we could see a repeat of that story. So again, it just adds more salt to the wound, right? About how pivotal surviving this early stage of the game where all your trapping picks are still up for grabs for OWC already are for Dadunai, and losing this hidden one definitely doesn't do them any favors. But I think it's clear here who the favorite is to win this GT3, right? I think you put it very well. This team, OWC Ready, has been on a tear on all of the mechanics maps throughout the course of this tournament. You know, you're expecting to see Matty here absolutely dominate with very high accuracies as well. And you know, it's not too crazy to see why they decided to go for a pick like this. Map wise, I do think that this map is not as tapping intensive as, you know, the BPM might suggest. I do think that this map at the end of the day is going to be a lot more bursty in nature, and you know, 315 BPM, you're expecting to see very, very fast fingers being demanded throughout the course of this GT3. But you know, in contrast to some of the other tapping maps in the pool, this map is a little bit more forgiving when it comes to the length of the burst. As we get into the first KI of the map, you're already seeing 5-0 bursts being shot at these players right out the gate, and it seems as though MCY4 is really not having the best time on it.
I mean, Misha Awa's wish is going to come true. You know, there's not going to be a through AFC on the pick, but OWC Ready still looking very good as they have two big combos on the board. They are being matched by Dadunai, but is the stronger recovery on Matthew. And a fun fact is that OWC Ready have an over 50% DT pick rate in this tournament. They love anything DT, whether it's speed or not. Here we go into some of the trickier steams. This is where we start to really test the players tapping. It is going to be Milk Tea, MCY4, Intercamping, and Matthew all dropping. It is once again Gonza versus Misha Awa. Bit of a callback to our first pick here. These two players have been so good all tournament long, and I am for Gonza, a player who has been kind of often over the past few years behind Matthew and Intercamping. It's really nice to see Gonza taking the spotlight here, as it will be 160,000 points in favor of OWC Ready, and it's all going to come down to these recoveries. MCY4 finds the miss, but the combo will remain relatively even.
And we saw this trend from the hidden one before, where OWC Ready on a whole just has a lot better accuracy compared to Dadunai, right? You're looking at 99% X. You're looking at, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Gonza holding 99% accuracy all the way until the last quarter of the map. And we're seeing that trend being maintained here with this double time 3. Of course, two very different maps, but they do tell the same story when it comes to the accuracy. And I mean, you're looking at Intercaming, Gonza, and Matthew all hitting above that 90k threshold when it comes to accuracy, and you're looking at LoL 233 and MCY4 really struggle to even hit above the 90% accuracy benchmark here. And that makes it so that, you know, even if Misha Awa can put out a very, very strong combo, very strong FC as he's doing right now, it's going to be very difficult for him to overcome this large accuracy safety net that OWC Ready has generated together as a team. As we're moving to the last sections of the map, we're seeing Intercaming find misses. We're seeing, you know, MCY4 continue to struggle. We're seeing LoL 233 finding misses. And at the end of the day, it's really just Misha Awa to make a conversation for Dadunai here, but it's really difficult to justify any sort of comeback while Gonza is still staring daggers at him with the 97% net. We might even see a double FC on this GT3. It's going to be close. And it looks like double FC on the double time 3. Wow. What a way to kickstart the second pick, and what a way to win yet another point for OWC Ready.
Yeah, those are some absurd scores on a finals pool. Hopefully a good sign of what's to come in the rest of this match. It really did just come down to the supporting combos, the A ranks on the side of OWC Ready, B ranks on the side of Dadunai. Means OWC Ready are going to be able to consolidate that breakpoint and take an early 2-0 lead, which means this next pick feels like, I mean, it is still early in the match, but almost feels like an early must-win for Dadunai. I mean, giving up 2 breakpoints before the second phase of bans would be absolutely catastrophic. So we'll see what they opt into. It feels like they should still have some solid picks in the pool. I know you've been talking about their HD prowess, and I do like something like the Hidden 3 for them. I do think they have some other good options. I mean, generally, they're pretty strong on a lot of the threes, so you're also looking at, something like the Nomad 3 tech pick and the Nomad 5, which is more of a stack reading type map. Should be pretty strong, and they are indeed going to go for that Hidden 3 tech pick.
Yeah, again, we can talk about how Dadunai are favored on this Hidden 3 or we want, but it's important to remember who was victorious on the Hidden 1 that we just saw before, right? Given how they basically lost by around 150k in that Hidden 1, I think that Dadunai are going to go into this Hidden 3 a lot more precariously. I think they're going to be a lot more careful with this Hidden 3 pick, and it's definitely a lot less free, and they're going into it with a lot less confidence than I think they would have liked. But on a whole, I think this Hidden 3 is one of their better picks at the end of the day. Even with that loss on the Hidden 1, really, if you're Dadunai here, you had your Hidden 1 being shut down, and you basically lose on every single tapping map in this pool. You need to try to find points somewhere, and I think this Hidden 3 is a good way to introduce these two teams to the control pool as a whole. And who knows, if this pick turns out well for Dadunai, it opens up avenues for them to then pivot into things like your Nomad 3, your Nomad 4, maybe even one of the Hard Rocks as well. So on a whole, I'm a pretty big fan of this Hidden 3 pick. I don't think there were many other picks that I would have thought this team to go for as a substitute. But to talk a little bit about this map itself, this map clocks in at a relatively standard 160 BPM, or standard for the skill set that it's testing, which is going to be alt tech. On a whole, I think you're expecting to see the whole bevy of control skill sets. You're looking at flowing patterns that flow into themselves. You're looking at very, very intense overlaps because this is a tech skill set. And here and there, you're expecting to see a lot of thing control to be had. I don't know about you, iFlame, but I'm a big fan of this map. I really, really like this map.
It is an absolute banger. I love the song. Tech mapping is really well done as well. And a great pick for Dadunai. They picked HD3 in their last 3 matches and top scored it last week, so everything is looking up for Dadunai, but they give up an early break point, so let's see if they can convert on their pick this time around. It looks like we will be seeing intercamming back in the lobby alongside Alfie and Gonza. It makes a lot of sense that intercamming is going to be playing a lot more maps as the skill cap gets higher and we get further into the tournament. Interestingly, we are yet to see Z numbers in the lobby who did a solid amount of maps for them last week. Instead, they're just going to be sticking with Misha, MCY, and of course that is Milk Tea is 223, David, or 233, sorry, David is 235. For those of you who don't know, we are going to get an early miss out of Gonza, so we're not going to be seeing the FC run back there. And it's going to be a couple misses traded out of the intro. Dadunai are going to come out on top 2 FCs to 1.
Yeah, but already Dadunai a lot better of a start compared to that Hidden 1 before, especially as we are seeing 3 misses all clear the screen of OWC ready here. MCY4 currently the largest combo in the lobby if I'm not mistaken, and that's going to be a very big battery for Dadunai going into the next half of this map. As it seems right now, I think there's a stark difference in terms of the comfort for this Hidden 3, and that's what's allowing Dadunai to generate a rather substantial lead. Yes, MCY4 might have found the miss here, but I think the recovery efforts from Law to the 3 and Mishawa are going to be enough to neutralize the comeback from Alfie, the Kenya, and Gonza right now. But moving to the last tier of the map, and with that miss from Lolo, and now from Misha, and in fact, all 3 members of the Dadunai, things are looking rather dicey. We are in rough waters as the Hidden 3 scoreline shifts in favor of OWC. Ready here, Gonza, Intercambia, and Alfie all charging into the scoreboard for Dadunai, making it as difficult for them as possible. Intercambia might have found the miss, but that's not going to be enough to stop the freight train that is OWC ready. Gonza, miss the jab. LPU is going to look to run the extra mile, going straight to the end, generating a 150k score lead on this hidden 3. I mean, it looked so good for Dadunai in the earlier sections, but it just seemed as though confidence, consistency was the name of the game, and that's what OWC Ready brought to the table.
Yeah, I mean, that was an unfortunate collapse from Dadunai in the end. I mean, this is kind of the doomsday scenario for Dadunai. They've given up 2 breakpoints at the start of this match. OWC Ready are going to have yet another pick, another good chance to consolidate this breakpoint before we get to the second phase of bans, and then immediately after that, they're going to get to ban out one of Dadunai's strongest remaining maps. So OWC Ready, despite being only 3 maps into this match, are in an incredibly strong spot here, and so Dadunai are going to have to be flawless with their picks going forwards, and are going to have to find 2 breakpoints somewhere in this map. But I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, Gammy, but I'm seeing a lot of DT maps left in this pool and a no mod tapping option, and that looks a little scary if you're Dadunai.
Yeah, I know. Speak of the devil, right? We're talking about the DT picks, and it's instantly going to be a DT2 coming in from OWC Ready, looking to play off the momentum generated by the DT3 victory, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that is right. At the same time, right, iFlame, yes, there are still so many mechanics maps for OWC Ready to play into, and I think they've gotten to the point where it seems as though any form of mechanics just seem to favor the likes of OWC Ready, right? I mean, even if Dadunai, who I think will most definitely do so, ban out the No Mod 2 during the next ban phase, I still do think that the DT1, maybe even the DT4 could be picks that look very, very good for OWC Ready moving forward. And they don't even need that many picks left in order to come on top, right? They've already won 2 breakpoints on very crucial picks for Dadunai. They shut down the hidden, they shut down the possibility of hidden abuse for Dadunai completely. All the hidden maps are out of the pool. And you know, bouncing off their dominant streak or their dominant win streak on the hidden maps, they can definitely pivot into a free mod, even if their tapping picks get used up.
Yeah, I mean, makes the mental load a lot easier as well. You can afford now to give up the breakpoint. Obviously, you don't want to, but if you do, it's really not the end of the world for OWC Ready at this point. So they're not going to be stressing too much on their end. And funny enough, with this DT2 pick, 8 out of 13 picks for OWC Ready this tournament have now been DT maps. We'll see if they can get that percentage up even further with the DT1 and DT4 still left over in the pool. But for now, we are getting into DT2, false noise.
Yep, it's gonna be false noise coming out. Another lovely mirror map. I remember playing this back in my 6-digit days, but this is a rather uncommon skill set, if I do say so myself. This map is DT Tech, if I'm not mistaken. I think this map features a lot of weird sliders, and as per Tech skill set, as you were talking about before, introduces a lot of density with the amount of sliders thrown all around. But I think the main point of contention for a map like this is definitely going to be the finger control. And as expected, right, it's a double time map. The map is 258 BPM. You're already expecting to see a lot of different rhythms being tested from these players, putting, you know, their consistency and their applicability, that's a well, how applicable their 258 BPM tapping is over the course of these 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Already we get to see a glimpse of what's to come of the map, right? Instantly the map shows its fangs, all about these weird sliders, all like alternating rhythms, awkward rhythms coming to attack these players, and intercaming is going to be the first one to succumb.
Yep, Dadunai are going to trade that miss right back. That's going to make it 2 FCs to 2. Make that 2 FCs to 1 as Milk Tea is going to find the next miss on the side of Dadunai. It is once again Misha Awa, but Misha Awa no longer the last one standing for Dadunai. Things are quickly falling apart. Gammy Gonza does trade, but Matthew holding the FC strong, intercamping on a very good recovery as well, all the way back up to 400. And we've immediately jumped up to a 300,000 point score lead. Dadunai are just not building up enough recovery combo to bring this one back, and there's half a map to go, but this one is looking as good as done.
Yeah, already, Matthew completely uncontested in the lobby, and, we can talk about Matthew all we want, but Gonza and Intergaming are basically beating everyone else on the side of Dadunai. I mean, when all three of your players are diffing every single one of your opponents, it's really difficult for them to make a case when it comes to the comeback. And, I don't like to dwell on on the same thing multiple times, but you're looking at the accuracy from OWC really being extremely apparent here. The act lead from OWC already is just too big for Dadunai to overcome here. You're looking at basically a what? Is that like a if you compare the lowest accuracies from both of these teams, you're looking at a 4% ag gap, and that just speaks to the level of comfort that OWC already are able to exercise over Dadunai in a matchup like this. And Intergaming might find a miss. He finds a trade, brings down Misha Awa and MCY4 with him. Gonza as well finds a miss, but so it's just Lolo 233 versus Matty. But you're looking at two whole different weight classes when you're comparing these two players. And Matty is looking to go to the very end of Keck by False Noise with an FC, but unfortunately he does find a miss. As I say that, wasn't quite able to get the words out, but he brings down every single member of Dadunai with him, and that's gonna be almost a 1-0 score lead going in favor of OWC Ready, taking the series 4-0.
Yeah, welcome to OWC Ready Tapping. It feels like on every single one of these tapping maps, they have at least one player who can put up an FC or a near FC, as Matthew does get the S rank. It was Gonza on the DT3. Now it's Matthew on the DT2, and unfortunately, Dadunai, just like most teams in this tournament, cannot keep up with this team's tapping ability. I mean, there are very few teams that can stand up to OWC Ready on tapping picks, and now we get into the second phase of bans. OWC Ready likely going to be looking to ban out Control. I do wonder about the No Mod 5. It is a lot more reading, but I'm not sure how practiced OWC Ready would be on a map like the No Mod 5. I mean, there are, in theory, other control options in the pool. HR2 is one of them, as it is going to be a precision alt pick. That one is reasonable as well, especially with no maps left in the hidden pool. I think for Dadunai, obviously, you're going to ban out tapping because we do still have I believe we have a no mod tapping map left in the pool in that no mod 4.
I think it's... Wait, is it no mod 4? I thought it was no mod 2.
Oh.
I think no mod... No, actually, I think no mod 4 and no mod 2 are like both tapping, but they're different kinds of tapping. No mod 2 is like more flowing. No mod 4 is more of your standard mechanics check at 260 BPM. Basically, you're choosing between two evils by leaving either one open. So I mean, they'll still have to contend with the mod tapping now. But yeah, I think for Dadunai moving into the second picking phase, you're looking at a Hidden 2 and a Hard Rock 2 ban from OWC already. I can't help but feel as though you go for anti-mod after this, right? I think the Free Mod 2 is staring you right in the face. You are looking at OWC Ready, who's just who just on a whole haven't been the biggest fans of Gimmick, so anti-mod just seems like the best bet. I don't quite know if Dadunai is very practiced on the No Mod 5. If I'm just looking at the players that we have, I do think that even though Dadunai likes control as a skill set, I don't quite think that translates very well into Gimmick. I don't particularly know any of these players for being incredible or incredibly or being standout players on Gimmick whatsoever. So I don't know if we'll be seeing a No Mod 5 pick coming from them this time round. But we are going to see them close out the ban phase with a DT1. Not going to be any of the No Mod. Not going to be any of the no mod mechanics maps that we are talking about, but at the same time, right, there's so many things that Dadunai wish they could ban, and they only have so many bans to work with.
Yep, not going to be doing any necrologicalizing today, it seems. It's somewhat surprising ban, but it does make sense as well. It has DT in the name, so you want to ban it out. But we do have Dadunai with the next pick. The No Mod 5 is interesting. It's one I expected they would have practiced in a matchup like this one, because it's one you can find an edge on, but you could be entirely correct, as they are going to opt for the No Mod 3, and so we will be getting the other tech pick. I mean, Hidden Tech didn't go so well for them, but I do like Check generally as a skill set. This one is mostly slider tech, I believe, but does have some tricky control patterns and a bit of finger control mixed in as well.
Yeah, this is a map by the lovely Acidica, known as one of the one of the front runners when it comes to modern tag mapping. Has been a mainstay or a very familiar name in the mapping scene, especially amongst tournament mappers and tournament players alike. And this map is no exception, right? It's a very, very unique flavor of tag map. You're expecting to see a whole variety of aim being tested here. You have a lot of cut doubles. You have flowing. You have standard curves in your flowing, but you also have flowing being tested as linear aim. And on a whole, this map is completely unrelenting for its 2 minute and 11-second drain time. A big fan of this map, and I definitely do think it's anything but an easy map. I do believe that this was a custom map for OWC semifinals. I
I
think
believe
in
that's correct.
2024. I don't know. You're the OWC expert here. I don't quite remember where I saw it from.
No, you're absolutely correct. It was an OWC 2024
Yeah.
semifinals, no mod 4. So good memory on that one. Here it's gonna be a no mod 3 because we don't need that slot pooling.
Yep.
You know, we're too cool
Yep.
for slot pooling. You know how
I
it
flame
is.
angering like half of the tournament seems that one comment.
That's what we're here for.
Indeed, we are. But yeah, I think from a strategic standpoint, Dadunai going for this number 3 pick is just trying to stick to their guns, right? I mean, usually when you're in a losing position or when you're completely diffed or don't have a clear angle anywhere, you'd like to go for something more RNG heavy, something like your DT1, something like a Nomad 1, maybe one of these more standard aim picks that everybody in the lobby will be able to play. But really, against OWC Ready in particular, I think this strategy just completely falls flat on its face because OWC Ready is in a whole different league when it comes to their consistency on these very standard mechanics maps. So I think what Dadunai is going for with this number 3 pick is that looking to instead of going for the lower seeded RNG pick, they just want to stick to their guns, try to find a point on stuff that they are comfortable on, play in their ballpark. And this number 3 is a perfect example of such.
And it's interesting. I mean, this is certainly not as one-sided of a matchup as the score would indicate. Dadunai have statistically been one of the strongest teams in this tournament consistency, especially looking back at both semifinals and quarterfinals, and just have not found that same consistency today in this match as we see MCY4 and Misha Awa both finding misses traded by AlphaU. Intercamping is on recovery as well, but we'll see how long this lead does hold as the combo is currently in favor of OWC Ready, and I do wonder if they are getting slightly skill capped on this pool, as OWC seems to have at least one player that can play every map to a high level. As I say that, they do find a full team reset, but it's immediately traded back by Milk Tea. Misha Awa, the only one with any combo remaining, that's going to keep Dadunai in the lead for now, but it's a slim margin.
Yeah, I mean, despite the fact that Gonza and Low 233 did trade misses, it is still positive for Dadunai here, considering that they were the team holding that earlier lead. And with Misha Awa currently trying to hold back the floodgates here, they're trying to prevent Intercambia and AlphaU. It looks like they're going to be able to keep their hold on this lead for a little longer, especially as AlphaU continues to find another miss. But it's really all contingent on Misha Awa, and Misha Awa does win those trades. Intercambia finds the miss here, and with that, there's no response from OWC Ready for the rest of this number 3 as we move into potentially the most difficult part of the map. This is where the right angle linear flowing patterns come in, and I mean, Misha Awa might find a miss, but that's already a 150k score lead on the side of Dadunai. It's going to take a lot for OWC Ready to try to bring this back, and it does seem as though they will be finding salvation in this potential sweep, denying OWC Ready of a dominant performance or complete wipeout.
Yeah, you've got to start somewhere, and now Dadunai have a point on the board. Maybe they can get some momentum going here. That's exactly what they need. Of course, that was their own pick. They are going to need to find a couple breakpoints later in this match, but they have some time for those. They don't have very much time at this point.
Hey, at least they don't just get like auto game ended by OWC Ready going for no mod 5 into no mod 2 into no mod 4. So we take our small wins in stride.
Exactly, and there's the no mod 4, unsurprisingly. So this is going to be kind of aim speed. You have kind of some heavier aim sections, as well as a much more 260 BPM burst heavy section towards the second half. And so I do expect OWC Ready are going to find themselves with an advantage, at least for the second half of the map. And so I feel like it's going to be rather important that Dadunai find themselves ahead coming out of the first half of this map in the aim-focused section.
Yep, surprising absolutely no one. However, we are going to be seeing a No Mod 4 being picked up by OWC Ready. I mean, you're just looking at the trend, right? You're going for a 315 BPM map into a 258 BPM map, if I'm not mistaken, into a 260 BPM map. You're really just playing off your speed momentum here, and this No Mod 4 fits that bill very, very nicely. This is a custom map by the lovely TNT Leo. So huge shout outs to our lovely mapper for this beautiful No Mod 4. This map as a whole, however, talking a little bit about it, features a lot of fast aim. I do think that on a whole, this map is a lot less. I feel like I said that about the DT2 and DT3, but this map is really not as intensive when it comes to raw speed shred compared to the two DT maps. Whereas those place more emphasis on your left hand. I think this map places more emphasis on your right hand to the point where you could consider it to be almost a pseudo alt map in that sense, right? You're expecting to see a lot of fast aim being littered around, and even though the speed isn't the main point of contention, you do still need to be able to exercise a level of comfort on 260 BPM so that, you can actually allow your aim to be consistent and, not be tripped up by having to play the map. Because, if you're not able to play 260, trying to aim it is a whole different story.
It certainly is. It's a custom map as well. This one mapped by TNT Lulu. So shout out to all of our custom mappers. We've got a few in this pool, as well as an original tiebreaker, which is pretty cool. We should be getting into the map any moment now. Gun says this is a tech map, which is definitely one way to look at it. But I imagine we're going to be seeing pretty similar lineups to what we've seen on previous speed picks. Actually, I think Dad and I have they played with... We've not seen Z numbers for sure. Have we seen David on any maps? I'm not sure we have.
You're gonna have to check on that one. My memory is failing me here. But yeah, with that said, we're gonna get into Unithem. This No Mod 4 clocks in at a little under 3 minutes long, but of course, once it gets going, it really doesn't stop. Bit of a slow section to usher the 6 players into this map. And you get to see a slight ag lead going in favor of OWC already, but it's really going to start once we get straight into the KI. And already you get to see the fast aim being thrown at these players right now. And you get to see, the bits and pieces of finger control that get thrown in with the occasional 5 to 9 note burst in conjunction with a lot of the aim being tested here. Already Gonza is going to be the first one to find a miss, traded up by MCY4 at the exact same time. Lolo 233 is going to cause that scoreline to shift in favor of the left side. However, as Intercambing and Matty hold a 2 FC lead against Misha Awa's 1. But however, as Matty finds the miss, he brings down Misha Awa with him, and now Intercambing is completely uncontested in the lobby, and that scoreline is just gonna continue to go up and up and up as we move into the second half of the map.
Yeah, Dadunai, they've got a lot of ground to make up here, and this is kind of how I expected the tapping to go. And I'm a little bit concerned because this second half of the map is even more tapping heavy. We get some much longer bursts. I mean, we do have a tricky overlap aim section that could catch net. There goes Intercam being missing right after the spinner. That's going to stem the bleeding a little bit, but unfortunately Dadunai, they just don't have the recovery combos. We've got a third of the map to go, and they've got 300,000 points to come back, and they all hit that wide angle. MCY4 does find another miss, but the question is, can all of them survive some of these overlap jumps that are coming up shortly? Here we go into the overlap jumps. It is going to be Misha Awa. All their hopes rest on Milk Tea, but unfortunately Gonza and Matthew have both held on, intercamping on a good recovery. And this point is going to go very decisively in favor of OWC Ready as they get point number 5 on the board.
I mean, it's just heartbreaking, right? What can you do if you're Dadunai in this situation when OWC Ready is just in a whole different weight class when it comes to tapping? There's not even a conversation to be had when all 3 of your players are just so much more confident, so much more consistent and so much more ready, pun intended, on this map. I mean, it's just so difficult. It's just so difficult. And with that, the series is going to go 5-1. And the thing is, iFlame, they still have the Nomad 2 in their back pocket.
Yes, they do. They have some picks available, and I think the picks start to get less clear for Dadunai. I think at this point, with no Hiddens and the Nomad 3 unavailable, we could see them opt into some of those free mods. I mean, they have liked a lot of the free mods throughout this tournament, especially some of the more tech or control focused free mods. I do wonder about the free mod 4. That would be an interesting one because it is much more of a rhythmic pick, but I think there's a better chance we will see, something like a free mod 2 is always a possibility. I mean, what do we think of the free mod 1? Just going for something like an aim focus pick.
For OWC ready here?
For Dadunai, I mean,
for Dadunai,
do you just
right?
try throwing like an aim map out, go for like
I want to see the free mod 2. I can't help but feel as though the free mod 2 is their best pick. I think with the free mod 1, it's like a matter of opportunity cost, right? Like by picking free mod 1, you are not picking free mod 2, and by that,
that's so true.
Like when that happens, I just necessarily feel as though the free mod 1 is not the best option. But I mean, I do see where you're coming from with that free mod 1 pick, right? Just trying to go in for something more RNG, but it's kind of established before that OWC Ready is just very, very strong when it comes to consistency. But, screw both of us, iFlame. They're not going to go for any of the free mods that we were talking about. They were going to go for the free mod 4.
I think this was the other good option for them. It is kind of a more rhythmic focused map, which generally feels pretty good. And Dadunai do have played a lot of these free mods. I think we're going to be seeing Misha Awa in for the hidden, MCY on the hard rock, and interestingly, they usually have David in as a third, but as I mentioned in the previous map, we haven't really seen David, so it's not necessarily clear whether they are available, so we may see one of the other players, Milk or Z Numbers, coming in to take that second hidden instead. OWC Ready have shown a ton of flexibility on these free mod picks. I mean, Gonza, Matthew, and Alfew have all played both Hidden and Hard Rock on various free mods throughout this tournament, so it really just depends on the map, but they could throw together pretty much any mod combination they felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult. It's so difficult trying to make a case for Dadunai on any maps moving forward, especially considering how both the Hiddens really didn't go the way that they wanted. It's important to note that the free mod rules for Res Cup necessitate you to take mods on every single player, so they will need to face the music when it comes to the mods. We haven't seen these two teams go head-to-head in terms of the hard rock, so we can't really speak about that. But if we're using the information generated by the two wins that OWC Ready has picked up on both hidden maps, I mean, it just seems as though, on a whole, right, the free mods look better for OWC Ready, especially given how this is a control free mod. So naturally, you're building off the information that you got from the Hidden 1 and Hidden 3, which are both control-oriented maps at that. But we are going to get into it. Nonetheless, it's going to be Egoist. I believe that this is a map by was it Megafan? I think this is a map by Megafan. This is gonna be a very control intensive map. I do think that there is a good amount of finger control to be had on the map like this, which is what sets it apart from the other control maps in the pool. And on a whole, gonna be a lot of circle tech being demanded as per your typical Mega Fan maps. You're expecting to see XL, G cells, and a lot of micro adjustments, a lot of micromanagement of your cursors to be demanded from these players over the course of this map. But with that said, iFlame, let's get into Egoist.
Let's do exactly that. We are going to see some early accuracy drops to start this one out. We do see what we have often seen from both teams in the tournament. Dadunai, they're going to run the double hidden on Misha and MCY. And OWC Ready have often preferred to run the double hard rock. It is going to be Gonza and Intercambing taking that this time around. Of course, this is a force mod tournament, so every player does need to take at least one mod. And of course, on a map like this, it's finals. We're not going to be seeing any hidden hard rocks most likely. We do see one early miss out of Misha Awa, but otherwise, both teams off to a relatively strong start, and this is a bit of a consistency test. I mean, it doesn't pick up too much until kind of a quarter of the way, maybe even closer to the halfway mark of the map. So I do expect to see some bigger combos early on. Gonza is going to find a big miss, and Dadunai going to start to pull this one back as, oh, it does unfortunately get traded by Milk Tea.
Yeah, no, not quite what you want to see, but that miss from Alphew is going to cause the scoreline to shift over to the right side for as long as MCY4 and Misha Awa can hold on to those combos when moving to the second half of the map. But the map is not going to give up any time soon here. Intercabing currently trying to hold back the floodgates, and it does look like he will succeed at doing that as MCY4 finds the miss. But hold up, Intercabing just doesn't get quite far with the FC here, and now Misha Awa is going to be the lone combo, the lone FC in the lobby, and that's going to battery that lead further and further to the right side, around 8k, 10k, and it's already shifted over. We're moving into a bit of a down KI section, a bit of an off KI section. Just some time for these players to regain their composure, regain their combos, and it's just gonna continue to compound Misha Awa's lead further and further. But this is where we get into a very interesting section, right? This is where all the 1/4, all the polyrhythm comes to attack the players, and this might be where we see misses. But the misses are only gonna come from the side of OWC Ready as the bottom row, Alfio and Gonza, both fall at the exact same time. And meanwhile, LOL233 and MCY4, they're hungry for that revenge. They're basically beating out anything Intergaming can put on show, and that scoreline is gonna continue to grow bigger and be bigger with Misha Awa leading the charge.
I mean, Misha Awa is just so good on these kinds of maps. Look at the accuracy. The only player above 99, Alfeu, the only other player who's anywhere close by and has just found the miss. Misha Awa finally does drop that combo, but has put in the work, has secured the point already for Dadunai. It's all style points now, as that is such a tricky ending. And Dadunai, they're going to get their second point on the board. So, okay, they've now won their last 2 picks in a row. They've got a little bit of momentum back, but they still need to find a couple of break points. They have one more pick from, well, I guess 2 more picks from OWC to work with here. And there is still that no mod 2 we've mentioned. In theory, OWC Ready, if they don't like the no mod 2 for whatever reason, they could easily pivot into any one of these AIM maps because neither team has really touched AIM. No mod 1 is open, Hard Rock 1 I believe is open, as is Free Mod 1. So it's a bit of an untested skill set in this match, one that I think would be a little bit coin flippy, and I certainly would not hate from OWC already.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, you know, we have to talk about the most obvious pick here, which I still do think is the No Mod 2, right?
Of course,
it's,
yeah.
It's not like a high BPM skill check like we've seen from the 3 maps that they've picked thus far, but I still think that it sits in that uncomfortable mechanics ballpark that it might make it difficult for Dadunai. But at the same time, I do know that MCY4 and, you know, Misha Awa, just a few players to name from their lineup, are relatively consistent and relatively strong at the No Mod 2s, especially when you compare it to, you know, their performances on raw speed in general. So I do still think that, you know, if they do go for the No Mod 2, it's gonna be less clear cut than, you know, what we've seen from the 3 maps that they've picked thus far. It does look like they are going to be committing to it, however, and it looks like we're going to see Chronicle by Lime or Kanchitsu, as he's known in other places. One of my favorite artists of all time, one of my favorite EDM artists. I love their style, and I think this is a lovely custom map at that as well. This is a map by the lovely Bulix, and gonna be a lot of flowing, iFlame. Gonna be very, very spacey streams to be had.
Yes, there are. There are 2 especially tricky space streams, one around the halfway mark, one right at the end of the map. And so that space stream in the middle is going to be the big one, of course, the middle. The absolute worst place you can miss because it does cap your score so heavily. This one, of course, only 221 BPM streams, so should be a lot more manageable for Dadunai. And I do think this is a map they could certainly put up a fight on. And, you know, they're going to need to start finding these breakpoints somewhere. Let's see if they can do it on No Mod 2, but this one does have potential for some decently high combos. I don't think it's that long of a map. It is only 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Really, it's a pretty short pool overall, I would say. Not too many longer maps if you don't count Free Mod 1.
Yeah, and I think on a whole, if there were any of these mechanics picks still left in the pool that I think Dadunai could find a breakpoint on, I think the No Mod 2 is probably their best bet, right? Because you know, the picks that we've seen thus far are all very high BPM. They're all raw mechanics. They're all very left-hand intensive at the end of the day. And they all have this benchmark that you need to hit, right? I was talking a little bit about it when we were speaking on the No Mod 4, but I think, you know, with these three maps that we've seen thus far, it all requires you to be able to consistently hit past 250 BPM if you're tapping. And I think that's a benchmark that all the players from Dadunai are just not quite able to overcome, with the lone exception of Misha Awa. So I think with the BPM being a lot lower this time round, only clocking in at 222 BPM, which is in fact almost a 30 BPM decrease from the maps that we've seen thus far, I think Dadunai is going to have a lot easier of a time being consistent and finding consistency across the board with this No Mod 2. And we already see glimpses of that as you're seeing a double SS from MCY4 and Lolo233, who have historically throughout this match really struggled in terms of the accuracy.
Yeah, we'll see how long those can hold, as you do expect those will drop off relatively soon. We do see a couple of early misses, but since they have been traded, shouldn't be too consequential. We'll have to keep an eye out for those chain misses that can significantly drop the accuracy and could swing the score lead pretty heavily, but it's not too difficult of a start to the map, so shouldn't see too many drops. It is just going to be 2 FCs to 2. It is Dadunai with the accuracy, but OWC ready with the slight combo advantage. Here we go into our first base stream. That claims 2, Milk Tea and Gonzo. That's a bigger combo dropped for OWC ready, which means Dadunai going to pull into the lead. Intercambion follows it up with yet another miss. We've got more space streams traded back immediately by Misha Awa. Now it is one big combo to one. Matthew still on the full combo. MCY4 not too far behind. There goes MCY4 with a huge chain miss. Matthew does trade. I believe that was a slider break for Matthew. And as the dust settles, the combos are dead even once again, Gammy, after all of that.
I mean, these players have to be feeling it, right? I mean, it's just been a complete push and pull throughout the entirety of this No Mod 2, and this is what we're talking about. Even though this pick just favored the likes of OWC ready, Dadunai are more than enough to win out on a pick like this. But we move into the final KI of the map, and it's going to be down to the 2 big combos on both sides to make the difference here. Gonza and Lol233 are leading both of their teams when it comes to the scoreline right now, and it's all going to be contingent on whether they can make the difference. But Gonza, unfortunately, falls short at the very end. Lol233 leading the charge with a 700 combo to his name, beating out anything Matty can muster. And Matty tries, he made it. This doesn't look like it's enough. 50k, and it's only going to continue to go up as Lol233 make the declaration that they're not out of the game yet and win back their first breakpoint.
What a score from Milk Tea, clutching it up at the end. The S rank for Matthew as well. That is ridiculous accuracy. 99.61 on this map is absolutely nuts. Was just that one slider break on the on the space stream in the middle. But man, Dadunai, they've gone from down by 4. Now they're only down by 2. They've gotten their breakpoint, Kami. They just need one more breakpoint, assuming they win their own pick. And all of a sudden, we are going to be all tied up. They have done a really good job to keep their mental strong and keep themselves in this match. This is far from over, as they now have the next pick. Options, though, becoming a lot more limited. They no longer have any kind of heavy tech options. There is quite a bit of ult left in the pool and quite a bit of aim. I am curious to see which direction they do want to opt into. A lot of the ult options would be Hard Rock 3 and DT4. I think DT4, yes, it's ult, but it's still DT, so that's a little scary into OWC ready. You know, at the start of this match, I really would have expected them to be more into these gimmicky picks, Free Mod 2 and No Mod 5, but so far into the match, they both remain open, so maybe they're not as comfortable on those picks as expected, or maybe they were just saving them for later. We'll find out shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there are a few picks that I would definitely like to see. I think you already know what I'm talking about, right? It has to be the Free Mod 2, and finally we get to see the Free Mod 2 coming in from Dadunai. I used to pray for times like this.
Yep, this is my favorite map in the pool. It's Grid Night.
Is
I
it? Is
mean,
it?
it's a grid map anti. Oh, it absolutely is. I am a big grid map enjoyer. When
Oh.
I played more actively, I used to play a lot of grid maps, and you don't see too many grid maps these days. But this is actually a modern grid map from 2021. It's not like your typical 2012
Old map.
style grid map, which is pretty cool. And of course, with the anti-mod, it is going to be your, I mean, pretty standard these days, CS5 AR 8.5. I am curious about the mod combinations. Do you think I think grid maps are maps that we quite often see easy on because the
Oh
patterning tends to be
yeah.
very playable. And we have seen, I think it was actually David who took easy earlier on in this tournament. We haven't seen David yet, so unfortunately might not be available. So if David's not here, we probably are not seeing easy, but you know, maybe there's hope.
Yeah, maybe. You know, one can definitely hope. I do think that David having an easy score on this map is going to be a huge asset for Dadunai, right? Having that consistent score that you can put on the board, that you can guarantee every single playthrough, is so huge on a map as volatile as this Remote 2. You're right. You're looking at grid mapping as a whole is just a skill set that not a lot of players are familiar and comfortable with. And when you throw, you know, the high precision for the hard rock or the uncertainty that comes with playing AR 8.5 hidden, it makes guaranteeing consistency on the map a lot more difficult. And having that one play that you can always trust to anchor your scoreline down is always a very nice for you, especially in the mental side of things. And this is definitely one of those maps that could swing either way depending on the day. I think even if you can FC this in practice, the chances of you actually doing the same in matches is very low. This is a map that can trend very large. That has a very large range of scores that you can potentially get on it. So with that said, we're gonna be moving into the free mod 2. This is the pick that I was anticipating Dadunai to be particularly strong on. So we'll have to see if they come through with that prediction.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got 4 hard rocks on the bottom row, nice and mirrored. It's going to be Gonza facing off against Misha Awa on the hidden at the top of our screen, taking us all the way back to our first 2 maps where it was those two popping off, putting up the big combos. We'll see if they can do it again on the hidden. Of course, this is not an easy map to read. There are a lot of back and forth patterns, and it is just going to be the early miss for Gonza. MCY4 not having the best of times so far, down at 96% accuracy, lowest in the lobby by a decent margin, but is recovering. Misha Awa finds the next miss, and things are quickly falling by the wayside for Dadunai. This is an incredibly short map, so we're almost halfway through, and OWC ready find themselves up by 150,000 points.
Oh my goodness, the hidden on Nishawa just doesn't seem to be able to match up to the consistency that Gonza is bringing on the table, right? We're talking about an accuracy lead coming in from Misha throughout most of that first half, but Gonza is just bringing the heat when it comes to the accuracy. About 2% lead over Misha Awa moving into the last third of the map, and that's really what's making the difference here for them right now. Lolo 233 really being the only combo on the side that Dadunai is trying their best to, you know, keep the scoreline close, but with Intercame being still standing tall with a 99.44% accuracy FC, it's going to be tough to get them back in the game. But Intercame finding that miss is going to be a small glimmer of hope for OWC Ready, as Gonza remains as the lone recovery for OWC Ready here. But with Lolo 233 being the only large combo in the lobby, he definitely needs to rely on MCY4 to continue to generate a lead in order to battery them across the margins. But here, Lolo 233 unfortunately finds a miss, leaving MCY4 on his lonesome. And I simply do not think that it's going to be enough to overcome the likes of Gonza in this ending section, as OWC Ready takes this series to match point.
Yeah, Gonza hitting those overlap jumps towards the end on the Air 8.5 hidden is ridiculous. I mean, those are such hard patterns to nail with HR, but Gonza makes them looks easy and gets the score that OWC Ready need to get to match point. It was an impressive S rank from Milk Tea as well on the hard rock, but unfortunately not quite enough for Dadunai. I mean, you can't expect Misha Awa to match that hidden score on this map. That is an unreasonable hidden score from Gonza, I have to say. We are going to need now 3 straight wins from Dadunai, and 2 of them are going to have to be on OWC Ready's picks. But on the bright side for Dadunai, they are out of tapping, so they may have to opt into either aim or alt. There is still a DT map left in the pool in that DT4, but it's a pretty tricky DT alt map, so a very different style than what we've seen from the other DT picks in the pool.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few ways that they can go for this final pick. I was, in fact, looking at something like a Fremont 1 potentially being a good shout, but I also think that, you know, but coming out of the Fremont 2 and Fremont 4 that were rather hard rock or placed more emphasis on the hard rock side of things, so I also do think that the hard rock is up for grabs for them. I think, you know, hard rock 1, hard rock 3, they're two very different maps, and personally, I would gear it towards the more mechanically inclined one, which would be the Hard Rock 1 at that. So, I mean, to me, it's between the Hard Rock 1 or Fremont 1, but it is, in fact, going to be none of that, and we are going to see the DT4 here. I'm not too familiar with this DT4. Tell me a little bit about it. Well, unfortunately, my goat is somewhere, but I'll give you guys a scoop on what I know about this DT4. Right, this is a pretty famous song, if you are familiar with the O circles at all. And this map in particular is a control-heavy double time 4. I think this map clocks in at around 193 BPM, so a lot slower than the other DT maps that we have in this pool. And because this map is a lot slower, you can expect its patterning to be the main point of contention. And this map definitely does deliver, right? A lot of awkward patterning to be desired throughout the course of this map. You're looking at a different flavor compared to the alt-tech maps or the modern tech maps that we've seen thus far in this matchup. This map features a lot more, you know, standard sliders. I don't really know how to describe the patterning. Unfortunately, my mapping vocabulary isn't expanded enough to really explain it very well. But I think if I had to try to explain it, I think this is a map that really takes your cursor for a ride because of how the flow works in very rigid ways. I think this map is one that, you know, requires a lot of precision, and it requires your cursor to be put in very uncomfortable positions if you want to play it to a level of proficiency. Not helped by the fact that, of course, this map is DT, so you're expecting these circles to come a lot faster, these sliders to be a lot faster. And on a whole, you know, I think it's going to be a real test of your ability to adapt your aim in uncomfortable positions.
All I wrote in my pull notes is alt, so that seems like a pretty good description to me.
I think it's a lot more different from modern alt maps, though. And I think this style of alt is like a very nice breath of fresh air, if I do say so myself. I am interested to know why. I'm interested to see what the plan is for OWC really going for a control pick into Dadunai, right? Because we already kind of established that Dadunai is, on a whole, at least, I wouldn't say stronger, but at least competitive on the control picks. And, you know, I think OWC really definitely had a few aim picks that they could have tried into, but I guess they don't want to play into Fog of War when it comes to the aim, and they're instead deciding to try to go off the momentum generated by the DT2 and DT3 and jump into a DT4, even though it might be a control-oriented map. But I mean, that's it. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately at this stage of the match, you just start to run out of picks, and you have to pick what your players are comfortable on, regardless of the other team's potential proficiency on the map. And this is the stage of the match where there's a lot higher potential for break points as the picks get a lot more uncertain. So Dadunai do still have a chance to bring this one back. Yes, it's 6-3, but they are still well and truly in this match. We do see a couple misses out of them early on. They are going to be traded back by both Alfeu and Matthew. It is going to be Gonzo once again for OWC Ready, pulling a lot of weight here and giving OWC Ready a 100,000 point lead. Does find the miss. It's a full team reset for OWC Ready. Dadunai have a little combo to work with, but 150 is more than nothing. It's going to keep things at least relatively stable for the time being, but we're going to see more misses coming through from OWC Ready. That follow-up miss from Mishawa not going to be helping their case.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about OWC already finding that complete reset there, but Dadunai really don't have much to their name in terms of the recovery here. And I think in that case, I was very clear to see, the real difficulty of this map. This map really takes your cursor for a ride. Your cursor moves so fast in such a rigid manner that we're looking at a real struggle when it comes to maintaining consistency across the board. We're seeing Matty, Alfie, Mishawa, Lolo233, and now MCY for all finding misses. And it seems as though Gonza is really the only player in the lobby who's able to exercise consistency, a consistent combo on this map, to say the very least. We move into a slow section here, and it's already a 200k lead in favor of OWC Ready with absolutely no response for Gonza's lead here. And I mean, we're going into the instrumental interlude here. This is where the map gets a little bit more flame control-y. The control gets a little bit more awkward, especially as we see with that weird cut doubles pattern. As of right now, 700 combo on the margin here. It's looking very, very dire for Dadunai, and it looks like they are nearing the end of their tournament run here. Gonza completely uncontested, and it's just for style points here as the entire lobby crumbles around him. Really, it's just MCY4 to try to make any sort of stand, but it's futile in the face of Gonza, who's been absolutely on fire this matchup, looking to close out this match with a extremely dominant, almost 1k performance, and it's just gonna be a question of how far can he take it. He gets to the end of the map, 974 combo to his name, and with such a dominant lead, he leads his team to victory, 7-3. What a way to send Dadunai home.
Certainly sending a message. Gonza is looking OWC ready to me, and they're going to be looking absolutely terrifying going into their next match, where they will be playing the winner of Slushy versus Balner. Commiserations, of course, to Dadunai, who had a really good run this tournament, had some of the top scores throughout the earlier stages of the tournament, and made it all the way to the finals top 6. Certainly nothing to scoff at, especially coming in as seed number 12 and beating quite a few higher seeded teams to get here. They beat Team Seed 7 last week, and Seed 6 the week before that, also having a close match with Seed 4. So they certainly shouldn't feel too bad about their loss, but do we know when the next match is this weekend?
Indeed we do. The next match that we're going to be seeing is in about an hour and 20 minutes or so. The next match is going to be between Slushy and Balner. It's going to be at 17:30 UTC. That's going to be our other lower bracket match. And it's going to be WoM and Atomy 1 taking you for a ride on those matches. So do show them some support if you are interested in seeing that match unfold. But I think with that, I mean, commiserations to Dadunai. Unfortunately, there had to be one loser in this matchup. And I think, they can be more than proud of their performance going into this tournament. I think you put it very well, right? Seed 12 having to go through a lot of teams that are higher seeded than them. Their tournament run has been anything but easy. And unfortunately, it looks like OWC Ready had to be the team that put a stop to their comeback underdog story. So that's it. I think congratulations to OWC Ready, and they are looking extremely scary in trying to be in contention for Grand Finals weekend. But with that said, any last words from you, iFlame?
I think that is a perfect summation of the match. I've been iFlame, joined today by Gammy, and a thank you to Pigstar as well for the stream. Last but not least, thank you guys all so much for watching. We'll see you right back here at 17:30 UTC for more Resurrection Cup.
Bye-bye.